This episode of the Question of Ethics conversation focuses on the court professionals' changing ethical role in our nation's new political landscape. In 1989, the American Judicature Society developed the first code of conduct, which NACM used as the basis for our model code. Back then, the line between political and non-political activities was fairly clear. There was no social media. There wasn't even much of an internet. The code centered on actions that were clearly political: attending a campaign rally, canvassing for a candidate, or advocating for or against a ballot measure in the office. Today, virtually every issue is seen through a political lens. Expressions of support or opposition to government, the courts, or public institutions are often interpreted as partisan. Messages that would previously have been regarded as civic, education, or apolitical are now frequently politicized. Our model code presumes that court professionals still have a private life. They can still exercise their First Amendment right to free speech, separate and apart from their role within the judicial branch. Nearly 40 years later, this presumption is seriously under question. Now, social media broadcasts every person's opinion on everything into the electronic ether. This episode does not have a definitive answer. The Ethics Committee itself is still in the midst of laying a course for court professionals in this new environment. It does, however, frame the issues and provide context for the environment we find ourselves in. I'm Pete Kiefer, and welcome to A Question of Ethics, a conversation on courts and ethics. In this episode, we explore the ethical issues surrounding court professionals maintaining personal social media accounts, especially in this new political environment. This episode was recorded in two discussions. The first was held on February the 25th, the second on May the 5th. On the call were Cordell Webb, Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for the First Judicial District Court in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania; Carl Tanis, Court Administrator for the Second Judicial Circuit Court in Sioux Falls, South Dakota; Teshere Kalicharan, Alternative Dispute Resolution Coordinator for the Ninth Judicial Circuit Court in Orlando, Florida; Norman Meyer, Retired Clerk of Court for the Bankruptcy Court in the District of New Mexico; Roger Rand, Information Technology Manager for the Multnomah County Circuit Court in Portland, Oregon; Nathaniel Mingo, Director of Court Services for the Municipal Court in Riverdale, Georgia; and Kelly Hutton, Deputy State Court Administrator for the North Dakota State Court System in Bismarck, North Dakota. Let's join the Ethics Subcommittee as they explore the evolving relationship between social media and the courts. Do you still think that court professionals should be permitted to maintain personal social media accounts as long as those accounts are separate from their professional roles?
I think that court employees should be able to maintain their social media accounts in the way that they maintain their social lives in general. And same rules apply. So if you're out socializing, you have to make sure that you're not saying or doing things in the public that would have conflict with the courts in terms of the court's neutrality, in terms of the court's reputation. And so these same rules apply whether you're out in the public or you're on social media. I think it really applies on social media because social media is essentially leaving a record. So it's not like you're out in a barbecue or you're somewhere with friends and family and you express some opinion that no one has access to. However, with social media, you are putting that online for the world to see. And so I think you should have a heightened caution when you're putting things on social media.
And you almost have to have a pseudo social media presence if you want to engage without having any retribution or any fallback for that. I know a lot of people I know. I didn't even know they were on social media until I saw, until I realized that, Kelly Williams was John Smith, so.
Right. So Kelly's just to the north of me, we've got a provision too in statute that says state employees don't surrender their constitutional rights when they become a state employee. Then we've got a whole set of court employee restrictions. And so we all talk about provisions and codes and wording and best practices, but this is one of those areas where I think practical reality has galloped way beyond all of those. For example, I could never, if I never said a word in any political way to anyone, never posted anything, if I were silent on my political thinking, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out probably what my tilt is. You just have to look at the school my kid goes to, the church we drive to on a Sunday morning. I mean, there are so many life habits that reflect what a person's tilt might be that even if you do nothing, you'd still be able to figure out somebody's inclination. And so I think we're in one of those situations where practical reality has galloped past a lot of these provisions and statutes and codes.
And I think these things are a balancing act as well, because we also have to think about the influence that we have as a leader in leadership. If you come off as a person who is generally known as nonpartisan, even if a person may have an idea of your tilt, it could still come off that, okay, this person is going to be reasonable and hear me out, and I just can't guess what they're going to do based on politics. I'll have a fair shot. And I think as a court leader, you want anyone that approaches you to have that idea, no matter what your political tilt may be, because I think everyone is safe to have a, everyone is safe to participate and engage in politics, vote for who they want to, and have those things. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that they can't be a fair person. So I think that if you maintain that you're going to have a fair system and a fair process as you're leading your court staff, that's going to be a positive. On the other hand, if you come across like a person who is always going to lean this way on every single topic, that can send across the wrong message. And when you think about things like public trust and confidence, purposes and responsibilities, you may start to lose staff. People may start to lose trust. And so I think even if you can do certain things, like for example, like, okay, I know I could say this, or I know I could do this. The question becomes, but how could that also be a detriment to you in your career if it's going to make you, it's going to make your staff sort of lose trust in your ability to lead?
Cordell, if you and I were in the same room, I'd give you a high five right now, because I think that's exactly where we need to go. I mean, we could try to rewrite things or codes or best practices or something like that and make it 500 volumes long. But I think given practical reality now, what you were talking about is exactly what we need, is the shift we need to make. I think the only constructive, practical thing we can do now is emphasize that regardless of our tilt, we're going to aspire to an objective where we treat every single person who comes through the courthouse door evenly and fairly and even-handedly, regardless of our tilt, and not walk around like it's North Korea, because it's not human, and it's not, that's just not practical. And so I think that's the theme that we're eventually going to have to go to, because we'll need to write an encyclopedia on what's permissible and what's not otherwise. And I think we'll never get there. And so I think you put your finger on it, and now I'll try to shut up.
I'm not great at shutting. Oh, Norman, you're muted, so I'm going to take the unmute authority and continue talking. Also just sitting here thinking the practicality of it too is we do have court professionals that have to run for office. So they have to be able to be political, or political in a sense as they can be. We have a lot, our main thing are the judges and the clerk elections, because we still have some elected clerks, and I know they have a lot of elected clerks in Georgia, right?
Yes.
So it's balancing out that. And I also then thinking about it, well, best practices, well, it would be two totally separate documents, to Carl's point, like the volumes of, and maybe, but if this, then over here, and like the flow chart that goes off into like Foreverland of how to do that. So then it's taking more of that shift, or the realistic approach of, just don't do stupid stuff out there. And treat everybody the golden rule your grandma taught you, and the platinum rule, or whatever they call that now, making sure that those things are maintained.
Yeah, what I was going to say, because I was muted, was, best practices, I think, is a good idea, but I also agree with you, Carl, that it doesn't mean a 500-page set of prescriptions of you must do this, 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 and this. It's the suggestions and tips and tricks for, how you can best navigate the treacherous terrain of political activity and conform to whatever it is that your local, code and laws are, and adapting to the new environment that or the modern environment that we find ourselves in. One thing that came to mind, I think, when Nate was talking is, one thing I did with staff that I supervised is I said, if you have any question about whether something is ethical or not, come talk to me. Let's have a discussion. And we can talk it out and work it out. And ultimately, there were a couple of times I went to the chief judge of my court, either for something I thought I wanted to clear guidance on, or there was an employee who came up with something. And I said, I'm not sure which is the right answer here. So I went to the chief judge and said, we need to give some guidance to the staff on this, because it's a question that I didn't feel personally able to answer. So we wanted something from the court. And so having a mechanism for people to resolve ethical dilemmas, I think, is a really good thing.
So what precautions should court professionals take in maintaining their personal accounts and keeping them separate?
Following up on the subject of what we are comfortable with and not comfortable with talking about, I think that it's important to note that if you are in some of my teachings, I teach social identity training and customer service classes where we talk about how we act to those people who we live with, how we act with the people who we work with, and how we act with the customer. And when we're at work, we are identifying as a court employee. And if we are outside of those work hours, we are only identifying as a court employee at when we are participating in a court event after hours, wearing court memorabilia, or at our level of the people present here, if we're representing a national organization that is court related. All of those sort of tie us to the job and restrict us in what we can say. But for the rest of our court employees who are maybe not at this level, who are at a national level, or immediately recognizable as a court employee, we still maintain our freedom of speech. We can have our opinions as long as we don't tie it to our work. I think this can be most easily demonstrated if we talk about the election of judges. It's something we're all very familiar with. So if we are out after hours and we're not wearing court memorabilia and someone asks us about a judge who is on the ballot for re-election, that is a clear line. We have inside information. We work inside the court. We know of the political, issues or statements or topics that are happening inside the court. And to share that is directly using our positions in the court to influence the outcome of an election. I think that is clearly not okay. But if we are in those outside things, in an outside setting, as you said, in a restaurant, at a family function, at a church social, and we are expressing our opinion about a national election campaign, and we're not tying it to our job, I think that we're in full right of being able to express our personal opinions in our freedom of speech, because it has nothing to do with our jobs. It's outside of our sphere of influence. I think that's a good way to look at it.
Does court leadership have a right to consider information brought to it by a third party, for example, another court employee? And at what point could reporting on another's social media activity raise legitimate concerns?
If a third party told us that there was a court employee that was talking about how they don't like the court and they were giving out confidential information and they were sharing files, even if this wasn't happening on social media, we would be interested in that information. So same thing. So let's say we are having a court employee and they're going on their social media account and they're trying to walk around the courthouse showing vulnerabilities of judges, how someone could sneak in. Even if that information is coming from a third party, if I'm a court leader, I'm thinking to myself, why would this court employee be sharing something about security risk? That would raise concern, and I think leaders should address that, no matter where that information is coming from. Now, you talk about some safeguards and protections. We also should make sure that we are authenticating the information. Don't just assume that it's correct, because what if that's an AI video and the court employee really didn't do that? So ensuring that what we have is authenticated, true and correct information, doing an investigation, giving the employee a chance to respond. Let's make sure what actually happened is happening. And then the third part of your question was looking at, does this go too far? Is it cyber stalking? Should they be monitoring an individual social media account? And for that question, I'm going to say it depends. I think if you can prove that it is, cyber stalking, that's fine. But if somebody is casually dropping in to something that you are putting out there on the public, I mean, you do take that risk by going on your social media account. It's open. If your social media account is open to the public, and arguably, even if it's locked, but that person is following you and you're allowing them to follow your account, well, social media is 24/7. So at any given time, they can access that account that you are essentially posting out there putting out there to the public. So I think that one is going to be, that's a harder question there. Whether it rises to that particular level, and maybe it's more legal implications, but from an ethical standpoint, as a court leader, I wouldn't want to be checking someone's social media account every day. I don't even think that's the best use of my time or court resources.
So let me pose this hypothetical scenario. 2 court employees are involved in an ongoing personal feud. In addition to the conflict, one employee strongly opposes the court's homeless court program. He expresses his views in private discussions with hundreds of like-minded individuals on a secure messaging platform like Signal. The second employee, acting out of spite, surreptitiously gains access to the platform and discovers comments criticizing the homeless court program. The messages contain disparaging remarks about the court-sponsored initiative. However, the first employee reasonably believed his conversations were private, while the second employee intentionally and covertly accessed the account. How should court leadership respond? Should the focus be on the employee's criticism of the court program, the improper intrusion into a private account, or both? What balance should be struck between employee speech, workplace conduct, privacy expectations, and public trust and confidence in the courts?
No, it depends. The classic answer with all things, right? But if there are 2 court employees arguing about a court program and they are both of the same jurisdiction in the court system, there is an obligation for public trust and confidence, right? And so with the public trust and confidence at its max and at its utmost integrity of what we do as court employees and what we're supposed to serve with the public, and that we voluntarily entered into this profession, 100% the employees have, I think, even more of a high standard attached to make sure that these programs that we're helping to run or be a part of is accessible and painted in the correct picture that the court is backing, right? The court is having this position taken to help or not help. It's not our decision to make, to determine if it's helping or not, but it is a cause that the court felt that there was court resources, technology, employee, all put together to get this cause taken care of. And so, yes, a court manager, depending on how contentious it is, the court manager should intervene and have a conversation with these employees to say, what is going on? What is your position here? And putting those things outside for the public to see, I think it causes irreparable harm almost.
I agree. I mean, there's no place for an employee at work to be speaking of a court program or a judicially supported court type, like a specialty court, in a negative way. I mean, it's not their role. So, generally people are not asking employees their opinion about whether or not drug court is appropriate, or whether or not a certain type of diversion court is, adequate for this particular person. That's not our role. So I think that if an employee is voicing those opinions, there is definitely a space for a supervisor or a manager to be just having a discussion with that employee and telling them that it's inappropriate.
Sorry, I wanted to just paddle back just a little bit on one of the topics that you had just talked about with the third party writing out the other court employee. I mean, okay, so then you have hypothetically 2 employees. It also not only does it affect like the public trust and confidence and who's looking in to these employees who work for the system, but it's also each other. So as we continue to evolve as a court with virtual appearances or virtual court appearances or remote or teleworking days, what if a court employee on their telework day posted a picture when they're doing their work at the beach? Yeah. So then it raises those types of questions and things too. Like, does the manager have to step in to say, wait a minute, you did 8 hours of work, but it wasn't from home. It was from the beach. What is the definition of like telework, and is there what the circuit's policy would say about it?
A heartfelt thank you to Credell, Carl, Nate, Norman, Tess, Roger, and Kelly for sharing their opinions and perspective regarding social media and the courts. I'll keep you updated on the subcommittee's progress addressing this vital issue. And to you court professionals tuning in today, your daily commitment to ethical service is the bedrock of our court system. Because of your passion and professionalism, you protect the court's mission of providing justice to all who seek it. Thank you for the difference you make every day. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you on the next episode of A Question of Ethics Conversation. Thanks for joining us today. The Question of Ethics Conversation is a regular segment on ethics, courts, and court administration. Today's episode will be available on our website, in the Court Manager Journal, on the Court Leader website, on YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, LinkedIn, and on X, formerly known as Twitter. Become part of the conversation. Join us live when we hold the Question of Ethics Conversation. Episodes are held immediately following the monthly NACM Ethics Subcommittee meeting on the 4th Thursday of the month. Check the NACM Committee webpage for the schedule and Zoom link. If you have questions, comments, or ideas for future conversations, email us. Our address is ethics@nacmnet.org. Did you hear an interesting comment by one of the panelists that you would like to listen to again, but you don't want to search the entire episode to find it? The Additional Resources section on the webpage has a question time marker sheet. Find the discussion question on the sheet, and next to it is the time that question was asked. You can quickly fast forward to that time and listen to the panelists' comments. Remember, if you don't have time to watch an episode, you can always listen to the audio version. Listen in your car or on the bus on your way to or from work. You never have to miss an episode. I'm Pete Kiefer, and on behalf of our guests, the Court Leader website, and the National Association for Court Management, thank you, and have a great day. The views, information, and opinions expressed during this episode are solely those of the hosts and the individual presenters. They do not necessarily represent the position of the National Association for Court Management.